Welcome, everybody. Tuesday, May 16th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, here with a house full of family visiting. So it may get loud. We'll have to see. Welcome all. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Normally from Washington, D.C., but coming to you from Chicago for the next couple weeks, thus the family ambiance. Anyway, we usually wait a couple minutes at the beginning for folks to arrive, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, etc. And I'm going to get my TikTok folks going on my iPad right here. And they also take a couple minutes. So why don't you introduce yourselves while we are waiting for folks to arrive from the various social media services. Here we go. All right, good. TikTok's caught up. Anyway, how are all today? As always, lots of interesting news. Good news, I would say, generally speaking, for Ukraine. So that's a good thing. Am I worried about the debt ceiling? Depends how you phrase that. I'm worried about what Biden will agree to. Yeah. But, you know, we'll talk about that another day. And welcome, everybody. Hey. Hey, Burridge. Turning off my ringer on my phone. There we go. You don't have to hear that while we're talking. We're just waiting a minute or two for folks to arrive. Hey, Fluffy. Waiting a minute or two for folks to arrive, and then I'll start the show. So this is the soft launch we always do for a couple minutes just to let folks arrive. Laka, if you're there, would you like your Berlin Wall pieces or should I give them to somebody else? I've been trying to reach you for days. You won the damn pieces during the Eurovision contest. I've sent you multiple messages. If you want them, respond to me on the Discord. All right, please. Goofball. Hey, Crutch. I am good. How are you? Hey guys, maybe another minute max and then we'll start. All right. Debt ceiling. Yeah. You goofball. You don't check in the Discord. You would have known you won. You silly man who was born in Germany, I believe you said. So, I mean, it was random, but it was still kind of exciting when I saw you said you were from Germany originally. That was kind of neat. So message me on Discord privately and give me your full name and your mailing address. All right, guys, I think I'll get started. Welcome. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show. I do 5 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Eastern time, U.S., 5 o'clock Central, Chicago time, where I am right now, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. The way the show works is I adjust my screen while I'm talking to you. There we go. Is I do the news updates for about the first half hour or longer if there's a lot of news. And then the second half of the show, I take your guys' questions. For you guys on TikTok, on my iPad here, if you want, go and submit questions via the Q&A link that is in my profile. The rest of you can obviously use the comment box at the bottom of the screen. That works very well. I also very much appreciate the gifts. They help keep my work going because I do this full time. It's my full-time job. And quite literally, my salary comes from you all. You're the ones who let me pay the bills and can keep doing this. So thank you for that. So therefore, I very much welcome the gifts on TikTok. And when I see them, the gifts flying on the screen, I will absolutely do my best to sort of do a shout out to you guys. Unless I'm in the middle of reading and I miss it, I apologize. But usually I'm pretty good about that. And for you all, the super chat and the super stickers are just a nice way of saying, hello, thank you. It's a little button at the bottom of the screen. Super chat. There you go. Thank you, Tom Clark, for those. Super chats are questions that you can pay a certain amount of money for, whatever. And as a thank you for that, I will always get to that question as the next thing I talk about. So even this part of the show, the first half where we're not doing questions, if you buy a super chat question, I will do the question as a thank you. I think that's it, guys. So let's get rolling. So today is day 447. Thank you, Bob Barker, for the hat. Day 447 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day military operation in Ukraine. Thank you, Happy Beach, for the little heart. Things are going very interestingly. So Ukraine today, okay, the Russians went nuts last night, okay, on Ukraine. It was revenge for something, probably Zelensky having a great time in terms of the great meetings he had in Western Europe. Thank you, Dora, for the hat there. You'll recall that Zelensky this weekend, and then including up to yesterday, had met with leaders in Germany, France, Italy, and the UK, got really good commitments, got a wonderful weapons package promised to him from the Germans, got great promise from the French in terms of additional armored vehicles and light tanks, got great promises from the Brits as well, additional long-range drones, I think missiles, The French then came. Actually, we'll talk about the French in a minute. The French also offered some long-range missiles that are wonderful. We'll talk about that. Anyway, Zelensky had a great whirlwind tour of Europe. And boy, Putin was pissed. And Putin, as he does when he gets pissed and feels like he's got to strike back, he goes and kills civilians. So, of course, they decided to bomb Kyiv, bomb the capital again, hit as many civilians as they could. They ended up bombing the zoo and a bunch of other ridiculous places. What they didn't do was actually much significant damage. Now, there were reports that, actually, let me rephrase this. There weren't reports. The Russians claimed that they destroyed a Patriot missile battery. Patriot missiles are the really good American missiles that we gave the Ukrainians finally. They were learning for months how to use them, and they just, well, from what we know, they put them into use in the last couple of weeks, shot down a Russian hypersonic missile last week, which are these missiles that, well, okay, again, we're talking Russia here, okay? To call a missile hypersonic, it has to go at least 5 times the speed of sound, or Mach 5. Speed of sound, at least in miles, is around 550 miles per hour, right? I'm going to guess 750 miles an hour, maybe, kilometers an hour, something like that. So 5 times the speed of sound, at least. We don't know. There are people who think the Russians were lying, by the way, who don't think the Russians have hypersonic missiles, that basically they were, I think the expression was, they took old wine and put it in a new keg, meaning that they used some of their old missiles and just faked it as far as what these things were. Well, these missiles were supposed to go so fast that no weapon system could catch them. The Ukrainians said, please give us Patriots. We think it'll work. Well, guess what? Last week, the Ukrainians shot down a Patriot missile, a hypersonic missile of the Russians using the Patriots. The Americans did, in fact, confirm it. Last night, the Russians threw the kitchen sink at the Ukrainians. The thinking is that, one, they were trying to just, cause mayhem because Zelensky had such a productive tour of Western Europe, of the 4 capitals. But also, the thinking is that the Russians were out to destroy the Patriot missile battery in Kyiv. At least one of them, if not, I don't know if there are several, but to destroy the Patriot missiles there. And what ended up happening was Russia sends last night 6 of the hypersonic missiles, right? The unstoppable hypersonic missiles, okay? 3 short-range ballistic missiles, 9 ship-based caliber missiles. These are the missiles that the Russians are shooting from down here in the Black Sea. I don't think they're doing it from the Caspian. I think they're doing it mostly from the Black Sea down here. And numerous drones, numerous of the Iranian drones that are the kamikaze drones. They have basically a bomb inside of them, in essence, and the drone comes and it crashes and explodes. Literally kamikaze. I mean, quite literally. Well, the Ukrainians say, and it appears so far that they're telling the truth, that they shot down everything, including the 6 unstoppable Russian hypersonic missiles. Now, interestingly, Putin's press secretary, that Dmitry Peskov, or whatever his name is, initially said it did not happen. It did not happen. Well, 2 hours later, they've changed the statement on the Russian website, on the media website, to it is unlikely that it happened. So Russia's gone from Ukraine did not shoot down these 6 missiles to it is now unlikely that Ukraine shot down the 6 missiles. Well, the Russians then, of course, trying to steal the news cycle because, the Russians, when I say the Russians lie, I'm not saying that as Russians are liars, like kind of a petty child taunt. The Russians lie as a matter of policy. It's just what they do in terms of conducting politics for them. So you've always got to doubt what they say. If they say something, never accept it as true. Find the proof first, and then fair enough. Well, the Russians claim they absolutely destroyed the missile battery in Kyiv. Now, there was video. The video seemed to show something going on with the missile battery. Some people thought that it might have been one of the Patriot missiles that shot up and then had problems. Thank you, Lori, for that. That had problems and came back down, because that can happen. And it does happen with all sorts of missiles, including the Patriot missiles, that it takes off and then crashes and blows up. Other people thought that the Russian missiles were blown up overhead. And when they were blown up, of course, they shattered and the remnants came down to the ground. Injured people, injured buildings. Some of them fell in the zoo, I was telling you. And one theory was that some of the fragments basically hit the Patriot missile battery. But the question was, did it injure it? Did it break it? How much damage was there? Now, keep in mind, the Patriot missile batteries are spread out. It's not like it's one thing. It's a number of different things. So it's very unlikely that one missile would destroy the whole thing anyway, right? But nonetheless, That's the oh, anyway, so I was going to tell you. So the Russians are saying they destroyed everything. The U.S. finally, earlier the U.S. said it's likely it was damaged, but we don't believe it was destroyed, meaning it was still operational. Finally, in the last hour or so, the U.S. came out and said that, I don't even know if I wrote down exactly. Yeah, New York Times. New York Times has an update. 2 U.S. officials confirmed that a Patriot system had been damaged in the attack, but added that the Patriot remained operational against all threats. So that's the latest we know. Again, 2 officials, that's pretty good confirmation. But again, we'll have to see as time goes on. But it looks like the system was damaged. It could have been damaged by a missile hitting it. It could have been damaged by, as I said, who was that? Omar, crazy American. I say, thank you for that. It could have been damaged by the missile getting blown up in the air and then the parts falling down. But nonetheless, looks like it's still operational. Now, we are at the time now when the Russians, already about an hour ago, the Russians started bombing Kyiv again. So the Ukrainian capital. So we're going to know, I mean, right now is when we're going to start getting feedback from folks as to just what's going on. Are the Patriot missiles batteries doing their jobs, et cetera? But it was, at least from what we're hearing, this was an amazing night. In terms of the Patriots doing their job, in terms of the Ukrainians using the Patriots effectively, because it's not just like you turn it on and it works, right? So they did an amazing job. One thing that I thought, let me look here really quick. One thing that I thought was really interesting. Let me see this really quick. Okay, two things. 2 experts on Sky News. One of them said the missiles, the Calibers, the Kinzels are the hypersonics. So the Calibers, which are the cruise missiles that came from the sea, the Kinzels, the hypersonics, and the Iskander, which are the other short-range ballistic missiles. Thank you, Achilles. Are expensive and difficult to manufacture, so the Ministry of Defense of Russia must be careful when planning the next strikes. The thought there is, thank you, Ellie, for that. The thought is that basically because Ukraine was so effective at shooting all of these missiles down, they are expensive. As I told you, we've got guests over, so I don't know if you can hear folks in the background. We have Greek family in the background making noise, so nothing we can do about it. So, but because the Ukrainians are being so effective at using the Patriot missiles, at taking down the Russian missiles, and the fact that the Russians only have so many of them, it takes a long time to make new ones, and they're very expensive. This is going to throw all sorts of wrenches into Russian planning for attacking next, because do you just waste your missiles throwing them all at the Ukrainians, knowing that a lot of them now are going to get destroyed? Oh, but it gets worse. Sky News talked to another expert who, listen to this, implications for Russia's nuclear weapons. You just received, this is the expert they quoted, you just received proof of concept that Western air and missile defenses can intercept 100% of your, meaning Russia's, tactical nuclear delivery vehicles in a time-coordinated multi-vector attack, meaning multi-vector coming from all different angles, different places. Thank you, Ellen, for that. Coming from all different angles, trying to confuse you. Right? Like one's coming forward, one's coming here, but the system could handle it. Now, they're saying tactical nuclear, meaning it's not an ICBM. It's not an intercontinental ballistic missile, the big honking missiles that are in the ground, right, that come roaring out, the really scary one that can wipe out entire cities. Not those. These are the tactical nuclear weapons. These are the ones that they would be using on a battlefield, okay, that we're worried about Putin actually using in Ukraine. Well, what we found out, according to the Sky News expert, the defense expert, is that the U.S. can take those missiles down, and it seems to be so far 100% of the time. It means Russia, that believes in using tactical missiles. I mean, Russia's sort of theory of warfare, US's doesn't really, but Russia's theory of warfare is using tactical nuclear missiles is totally okay. It's fine to use. In other words, for just battles, it's okay to use nukes, even if you're just having a battle, let alone, we're not talking I'm attacking your capital, you're attacking my capital, but just fighting a war on the ground. Missiles, nukes are fine. Their nukes can get destroyed by our weapons now. So if you're Russia, you're going, holy cow. Actually, you're saying worse things than holy cow, I would say. Thank you. Who's that? TikTok novice. Thank you for that. And Brian, thank you for the hat as well. So the other bit of good news today, this is great. We heard about this. I was hearing about it last night, but I didn't see anybody confirming it. And it finally was confirmed by the, I guess, the mainstream news, whoever today. Thank you, Ellie, for the heart. The French, President Macron, France, after Zelensky visit, said he is now going to be providing as well the French version of the Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Now, thank you, Martin, for the little heart. The French and the British got together. I don't quite know all the details of it. Thank you, Nico. for the heart. I don't quite know the details, but the French and the British got together and created this cruise missile that the Ukrainians used last week. That has the extra; it can go extra far. Remember the one now that can go 200 miles or 300 kilometers that we were very excited about last week? That was created by a joint effort of the French and the British. The British provided their weapons already, their version of it. Thank you, Leanne, for that. Very generous. And thank you, Maddie, for the heart on my head. But now the French have provided their missile as well. Their missile is called a Scalp -EG. This is good. I mean, this is good. Hopefully the missiles work equally well. But what's important here is, in principle, we don't know how many, because we also don't know how many of the missiles they got from the Brits. But in principle, they're now getting twice as many weapons, right? Because the more weapons, the better. They're able to hit more targets, right? I mean, they just obviously, I mean, I don't even need to explain this to you. More is better when you're talking about weapons. So if they could have twice as many weapons of these long range missiles that can go 150 to 200 miles or more, which you're talking up to 300 kilometers or more, you will be able to hit. I mean, just to even show you roughly, okay, my map of Ukraine. This is the area Russia controls. Okay, all of this they took in the last year. Crimea they took in 2014. Per se, the Ukrainians, well, in principle, the Ukrainians are going to be, these cruise missiles, by the way, are launched from planes, okay, from fighter jets. In principle, the Ukrainians are going to be sending them from near the border, meaning the front between their two fronts, between the Russians, even though this is all Ukraine, of course, but between the Ukrainians and the Russians, right? Ukrainians up here, Russians down here. The fighter jets might enter Russian territory, but they've got to be really careful they don't get shot down. So generally, you want to be looking at, okay, what is 300 kilometers away from the front, from the war front between the Russians and the Ukrainians? What is 200 miles away? Well, 300 kilometers gets you pretty much all the way down here. So it gets you within Russia, because this is all Russia, by the way, here. Russia's also down here. It gets you within Russia here. It includes everywhere here along the coast that the Russians were hiding their fuel, their ammunition, their barracks, their command and control, which is their military headquarters. It also encompasses most of Crimea, probably Sevastopol, the huge Russian naval base, and the Crimea Bridge. The Kerch Bridge, excuse me. The Kerch Bridge here, the bridge that got blown up last fall. Huge that these missiles can now go this far. And the French missiles, in principle, should be able to go as far. So that is why many of us have been very excited about all of this. And the French stepping up is amazing. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll keep telling you guys, it is very important to have these kind of personal connections. So I think, who knows what France was going to do before Zelensky came, but I suspect Zelensky had such a good meeting with Macron, the president of France, that Macron was willing to give these missiles. Now, one thing that's interesting, one observation I saw today that I thought was very interesting, and I saw a couple different people making it, that the thinking is going that it appears NATO, and I will say Biden as well, and I'm assuming Trudeau, Canada as well, but that NATO is starting to come to the conclusion that Putin is not going to come along. That Putin is not going to eventually say, oh boy, this war is just too hard and I'm losing too many men and too many weapons. I have to negotiate in good faith. No one, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but it looks like our leaders in the West are now coming to the conclusion that that's not going to happen either. That may be, if that is the conclusion they're reaching, they are starting to realize that there is no way to end this war. Thank you, Inspired Woman. Other than helping Ukraine win the war. Because if we don't help Ukraine win the war, Russia wins the war. Now, this is consistent with my analysis all along. I have felt from the beginning that the U.S., I think, as I've said, and I think France and Germany too, frankly, although, look at Germany. Germany is just like, Germany's like, wow now. I mean, Germany had a weapons package, I forget if it was 2.6 billion with a B dollars, something like that. A huge weapons package this week that the defense experts said, amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing, good defense package the Germans gave. The French giving these missiles, huge step forward. Mind you, the French also announced when Zelensky came that they're sending more of these light tanks. They're sending more of these fighting vehicles. Thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate that. I'm going to assume that's Norway. Thank you for that. I was saying with the, with everything everybody's sending, maybe, but I would be very pleased. Thank you, Timothy. If this is evidence that, thank you, Tom. If this is evidence that NATO is finally coming along to the understanding that Putin's never going to get better. He's never going to say, you know what, I can't win this, let's negotiate. And therefore, I know what I was going to say. I was going to tell you guys, I've always felt all along that Biden, I'm not going to knock Biden here, but I think Biden always wanted a tie. He wanted to basically support Ukraine, but get to the point where Ukraine and Russia both realize they can't win everything and they reach some agreement. But that always presupposed that Ukraine does not lose, right? Remember, I always said the White House has never said Ukraine must win. But they've never said Russia must lose either. They always sort of couch it in the middle because they want a tie. But that means that the White House position, even with this, we want a tie. A tie means Ukraine can't lose. So when you get to the point now, I'm going to stop explaining this because I think I'm almost making it more confusing. But when you get to the point where the Russians you think are never going to stop unless we beat them, then you have no choice but to help the Ukrainians beat them, because anything less means Ukraine will lose. And the White House position all along has been Ukraine cannot lose, that it's too dangerous in terms of, well, it's obviously bad for Ukraine and we don't like genocide in general, but it's also very bad for what happens next in Europe. Thank you, Piotr, for that. So very cool. Let me tell you a little about my Discord, and then we're going to talk about the latest from Bakhmut. I have a Discord community set up. It's discord.aravosis.com. You guys can access it on TikTok by going to my profile, look for the Linktree link, look for my Discord, click it. You guys can find it via aravosis.com or the link at the bottom, the tiny URL. Now, what the way it works is it's a free community. It's a chat community. You can pay as well. Thank you, Marcy. If you'd like to support my work, and I would very much appreciate it if you did, you can become a paying member of my Discord. We've got a number of people who are doing it. You get charged each month. You can cancel whenever, but it's a way of supporting my work on a monthly basis, but you don't have to. But one of the things you get if you become a paying member, every Saturday morning, I have a hangout at 11 a.m. Eastern time is when we're doing it now with the paid TikTok subscribers. TikTok also has a function you can pay. And with the paid Discord subscribers and all of you, we get together and we hang out and we just shoot the breeze. Usually Vlad from Ukraine beams in and joins us. And it's just for the paid subscribers as a special thank you to you guys. So you can do that. And we've got our auctions. In my Discord, I've got a number of auctions for Ukraine, really cool stuff we've gotten from Ukraine, including this cool stuff I'm going to tell you in a second. And the proceeds from the auctions, half of it goes to support my work because I'm doing this full-time for free. This is my job and nobody pays me. The only way I get paid is you guys. So one of the ways I also go around doing that is the auction helps pay me as well. So I buy cool stuff in Ukraine, bring it back, sell it, or auction it, I should say. Half of the proceeds support my work. Half of the proceeds we send back to Ukraine. And we've been getting drones, drone extenders, camouflage nets, supplies for people with disabilities, Christmas presents for Ukrainian kids that lost their family, $10,000 of medical kits for Ukrainian troops, lots of different stuff. Now, let me show you the two. We've got a lot of auction items actually that are ending tomorrow. We've got a public auction for everybody, a private auction, the VIP auction that's only for paying members. Two of the cool things we've got, I will show you briefly. One, authentic Ukrainian military patch. It's got the Velcro on the back. It goes on the military jackets. You know how they have the Velcro and stuff. But this one's real. Vlad actually got into a little bit of trouble exporting it. Thank you, She Crew, for that. And then had to explain to the customs people that he was exporting it because we were auctioning it and making money for the troops. So they were like, okay, that's okay. And the other very cool one, I do love this one, you guys know, is a piece of a Russian fighter jet that was shot down over Ukraine last year, March of last year. Su-30SM fighter jet. I've got a big fact sheet I compiled about it. It's made from titanium, which is really cool because it's super light, but it's super, like, you can't bend it. Anyway, very cool. Boom, boom, boom. Very cool stuff. And the auction's all in tomorrow. I'm going to have new auction items tomorrow night or Thursday, but tomorrow the auctions end throughout the day. Go check them out. Cool. It is titanium. It took a while, Mustard, to actually, maybe you were the one who helped find that, or was it Edsel? But we were having a hard time finding out what it was made of. And finally, there is no Russophobia. What's with Russophobia? Russophobia is, somebody asked, but it's worth, even though they're a troll, it's worth sort of talking about it. The Russians have created this word. You'll hear it, Russophobia. And actually, it's meant to be a joke about gay people and trans people is what it actually is. The Russian government hates gay people and hates trans people and has been clamping down on their own community for years. At one point, they were letting neo-Nazis actually go and attack their own people. They were kidnapping, neo-Nazis in Russia were kidnapping gay and trans people and taking videos of them being tortured and put them on Russian social media, VKontakte and all these other places. And the Russian government knew about it. They were informed and they said, it's not true. We're not going to do anything about it. Literally videos of these guys showing where they lived, showing their faces, doing these tortures, and government wouldn't do anything. Anyway, so the Russian government is supremely homophobic and they use homophobia. Mind you, other politicians around the world use homophobia as well for politics. I'm not going to get into that right now, but you know what I'm talking about. But the Russians are supremely homophobic. So because they want to kind of make fun of homophobia, they call any criticism of Russia Russophobia. So now it's Russophobia when you criticize genocide. If you don't like the fact that the Russians have kidnapped up to 15,000 or more Ukrainian children, taken them to Russia, brainwashed them and tried to turn them into Russians, when many of them, it doesn't even matter if they're orphans, you aren't allowed to steal orphans like candy, right? An orphan is not a souvenir you just pick up when you invade another country, unless you're, the Romans or something. I mean, this isn't the year 2000 BC. Here, we don't go in and just steal children from other countries. The Russians have been doing that. And they don't like that we called them out on it, so they call it Russophobia. When you call the Russians out on this, when you call them out on their genocide, it's anyway, you get it. So it was interesting somebody mentioned Russophobia. I thought I'd just bring it up because at some point you will hear that word, and I want you to understand what that person is really doing. They're repeating a Russian government talking point that is meant to slam gay people. It's meant to make fun of trans people, and it's also meant to make Russia the victim in this war, when Russia's the one that started the war. And even if, this is actually an important point, even if, keep this in mind if you're ever arguing with somebody, even if all the lies were true, let's pretend that the US did have secret biological warfare. Right? We didn't, but let's pretend we did have those in Ukraine. Let's pretend we had a secret plan to make Ukraine part of NATO. Let's pretend that we even had a secret plan to overthrow. I saw today somebody saying NATO was going to overthrow Putin and divide Russia up into little chunks. Let's pretend all of that's true. Why would you have to blow up a women's hospital, a maternity hospital to achieve that goal, to stop that from happening? Why would you have to blow up a theater that has the word children written on the side to let you know children are hiding inside, and the Russians just blew it up anyway? Why would they have to blow up so many apartment buildings? Why would they have to do what they did in Bucha? Why would they have to steal 15,000 Ukrainian children and brainwash them and try to make them Russian? Do you know what I mean? Even if you accept all the arguments that the bad guys put out there about why Russia had to do this war, let's pretend too. Let's pretend the Ukrainians really are Nazis, right? I mean, pretend all the Russian talking points and all the crazy talking points are real. So if the Ukrainian government's made up of Nazis, you can go in and steal their children from their parents. You can go and bomb women's hospitals, not a women's hospital, a maternity hospital. So it's women about to give birth. It's okay to bomb it, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Anyway, that was my little rant about Russophobia. So thank you for that. All right, Bakhmut. Let's get back to Bakhmut. So Bakhmut, stuff is happening. Not much is happening. Bakhmut is Ukrainian town, boom, over here, Eastern Ukraine. It is, thank you, Happy Beach there. Please keep the gifts coming on TikTok, guys. I appreciate it. Bakhmut is right between the Russian and the Ukrainian controlled parts of Ukraine. This is all Ukraine, of course. Remember, the Russians invaded and still control this. The Ukrainians control the rest. So Bakhmut's right in between. The Ukrainians still control Bakhmut, which is good. The Russians have been trying to get it for 11 months now. The Russians have been attacking Bakhmut unsuccessfully. Well, okay. Unsuccessfully. I mean, they've been slowly doing better, but it's been 11 months of them trying to attack and take over a town of 60,000 people that's now like 5,000 people. Actually, Bash Brannigan, I did not see your question. I see it now. I'll answer it in a quick second. Honestly, what's happening in Bakhmut is the Ukrainians are doing better right outside of Bakhmut. Let me see, was it north and south? Yep, just north and south of the city, the Ukrainians are getting more land. The Russians seem to be doing a little better inside the city. So the Russians have taken a little more land inside Bakhmut in the last day. The Ukrainians have taken more land surrounding Bakhmut. It doesn't really matter. I'm just saying, it's not much of a difference. What is important here is that the Russians have been trying for 11 months and that Putin ordered them by May 9th. it's now May 16th. By May 9th, a week ago, he ordered them to take that town because he wanted it for the big Victory Day celebrations they were having in Moscow so he could brag. It didn't happen. And actually, they've been losing some of the land too. So there's really no news about Bakhmut other than that, I will say. Bash is saying, is Putin's dream of resurrecting the USSR dead? You know, it kind of depends how you want to define Putin's dream. I don't know whether he wanted to resurrect the USSR entirely. Oh, mom's dog is here to give us a bark. Mind you, there's an entire room full of people. There's probably 10 people. My nephew's visiting with his fiance. Maybe not 10, 8 people in the other room. So her dog has to come in here and bark at me sitting alone on screen for attention because she's got 8 people in the other room. God, she's sitting here. I mean, okay, you guys I can show. There, you can see. I can't show you guys. It's too hard. The TikTok people can see. Oh no, I can hold on. Look at the bottom of her screen. There you go. Oh, she's looking away now, but you guys can actually see her right there. There she is. I mean, I'm just like, it cracks me up. She's got a room full of people. She's got to come in here and do the like, rawr, rawr, and she starts softly rawr, to get my attention. All right. Putin's dream of the USSR. We know that Putin was pissed about the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was disbanded in 1991. Okay. That freed all the other parts of the Soviet Union. Was made up of like 15 different countries. One of them was Russia. The other 14 pretty much were hostages, basically. Some of them are still close to Russia, but most of them were hostages. Ukraine, hostage. Moldova, hostage. Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, hostage. You also get into the, Georgia, hostage. You also get into the issue of the near Soviet states, the Soviet bloc. So Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, East Germany, Hungary, all of them hostages, right? Well, the Putin was not happy. A lot of Russians are not happy in retrospect that Gorbachev decided to dissolve the Soviet Union. They liked the fact, look at how they're doing in the war, right? There was a time the world feared Russia. We don't fear them now. We make jokes about them. The Ukrainians, I don't really want to say the Ukrainians fear them. The Ukrainians know the kind of damage the Russians can do because the Russians are willing to kill civilians. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. The Russians are willing to target civilians, right? Like they did last night. They are literally, part of their military goal always has been to kill civilians. It's not kill civilians accidentally. It's not we don't care if civilians die. It's literally, hey, let's kill civilians as part of our goal. That has always been one of the Russian military goals. So what happens is the Russians don't like the fact that they're not doing well in the war and nobody respects them. Like I said, we make fun of them now, right? We're all making fun of the Russians in terms of how they're doing in the war. Look, last night, every one of their missiles got shot down, including the 6 missiles that cannot be touched, except they were touched and they were destroyed. So from a Russian perspective, you look back at the Soviet Union, and even though it was an evil dictatorship, it was an evil dictatorship that people feared. So they felt like they were respected. Now, mind you, we still thought, the Soviet Union was a horrific POS of a country. It was a dictator, a brutal dictatorship. They kidnapped half of Europe. They held half of Europe hostage for 45 years and imposed Stalinist communist dictatorships that were horrific dictatorships where secret police ran the country. East Germany alone had files on over 1/3 of its citizens. 1/3 of the country, more than 1/3 of the country, the secret police had files on. It was, I lived sort of during this era, but here in the States, of course, visited East Germany, visited the Soviet Union in 1984. That was pretty wild. That was very wild. But this is what the Russians were. They were not anything to be proud of, but the Russians themselves were strong, and people liked them. People feared them, and the Russians want to be feared. So that's the deal with them. So I don't think Putin wants to resurrect the USSR per se. I think he wants to get as much land back as possible. He wants to grab as much of the surrounding countries that he thinks are Russia. Ukraine, he thinks is Russia. The Baltic states, he thinks is Russia, right? A lot of the other ones, he wants to get it back if he can. And if he can get the missiles back and scare the hell out of everybody at the same time, sure. And he's also playing from the Soviet kind of playbook where they would go in the developing countries and they would try to go to Latin America and Africa, especially, and just basically woo these countries to be pro-Soviet and anti-American. And they're doing it again. Look at South Africa. among others. Actually, all the African countries have been horrific in terms of either they're like South Africa, they're basically siding with Russia, or a lot of the African countries are claiming they're not going to take a side. And it's like, you're African countries, you're formerly colonial countries, and you're basically not taking a side in a colonial empire oppressing its neighbor and committing genocide. Really? I mean, really? With what you guys have been through? Anyway. All right. I think that's enough of an answer on that. Thank you for that, though. What else we got here? Abrams tanks. So we were talking the other day about, actually, no, F-16s. Let me talk about the F-16s. So something very strange is going on with F-16s in Ukraine. I don't really understand it. It sounds to me a lot like what we saw with the tanks, right? Because remember in January how all of a sudden this pressure about the tanks, and we were kind of pressuring Germany, and then Germany said, yes, I'll give tanks, but then Germany pressured the US, and the US finally came along. Then these long-range missiles, which frankly don't make sense. It doesn't make sense that Britain was able to give long-range missiles to Ukraine and that it was able to be announced publicly last week. Biden was against it. Biden supposedly felt that if we gave these missiles to Ukraine, it would be World War III, that Putin would freak out, or that Ukraine would use them to attack Russia. Then why was Biden okay with the Brits giving the missiles last week? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Now we've got a lot of chatter about people looking into providing F-16s, which are the American fighter jets, to Ukraine. Today, the British, let me pull this up. Today, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Dutch leader Mark Rutte, this is from The Guardian, have agreed to build an international coalition to help procure F-16 fighter jets for Ukraine. A Downing Street spokesperson said that the leaders would work to build an international coalition to provide Ukraine with combat air capabilities, supporting with everything from training to procuring F-16 jets. The White House was asked about it yesterday and immediately said no. Something's going on. Thank you for that, Phil. If you meant to ask a question, Phil, feel free to post it. I don't know if that was just meant to be a gift. Either way, thank you, but feel free to post a question too. Something's going on here. Why are the Brits and the Dutch getting together and doing this? And Zelensky, by the way, last week sounded I should say a couple of days ago when he met with Sunak in Great Britain, sounded very positive about what was coming with F-16s. But the White House turns around and gets asked about it and says, they said, have you changed your position? No. What's going on? Something's going on. I don't really understand this. Thank you, Tall Tom, for the hat there. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on. Bottom line, if Biden were opposed to Ukraine getting these weapons at all, the Brits and the Dutch wouldn't be talking about it. They wouldn't be publicly doing this. They wouldn't be publicly organizing. By the way, by organizing, I mean, they're probably going to reach out to other countries, the Greeks, the Romanians. I'm forgetting who there were like 9 countries. I had it with yesterday's show. I don't have it with today's. Oh no, I've got it right here. The countries outside the US that have F-16s include Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Greece, and Romania. That's a lot of countries. I suspect what they're going to do next, the Dutch and the British leaders, is reach out to those countries and sort of approach them one by one and say, could any of you be willing to basically pony up some of your planes for the Ukrainians? Again, they wouldn't be doing this if the U.S. were against it. I say that meaning the pressure the U.S. would bring to bear they would say, don't embarrass us publicly by doing this. And because the U.S. is the 800-pound gorilla in the room in the alliance, they wouldn't do it. Especially the Brits. The Brits would be the last people to do this to us because of the close relationship between Britain and America. So what that means is something's going on with Biden's position, and it makes me think of the same issue we were seeing with, as I said, the tanks and with the cruise missiles that now Ukraine has, things that the administration was totally against, and now they're for it. I don't know, Chris. I mean, Chris is saying secret deals. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is clearly one of the things Biden was afraid of, and people have suggested this. Biden was afraid of letting Putin define the war as a war between, Russia and America. Personally, I couldn't care less how he defines it. I mean, I don't see what the strategic significance is of that. But if in fact you think it somehow harms the war effort for Putin to be able to define it as a war between Russia and America, then you have America keep saying, no, 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 while everybody else provides the weapons. So this way, the Brits and everybody else organized the F-16s. They organized the tanks. They organized, right? Now, having said that, you run into an interesting position with regards to the F-16s because they're American weapons. So the Americans have got to approve in the end. The way arms sales work, and it makes sense. When you sell your arms to a country, part of the treaty or the contract you write says that if I'm America and you're Greece, and I'm selling you F-16s, part of the contract says you, Greece, are not allowed to give those F-16s to anybody without my permission. You can't sell them. You can't give them away. And if you do, first of all, I'll never speak to you again, right? You'll never be able to buy more weapons, but also they're my planes. So I could probably go and bomb them if I want to in that other country. Like, it's a mess, right? You wouldn't do, especially the countries we sold them to are countries that we're close allies with, and they want to buy more weapons from America. So they're not going to like screw around and give away these planes without American permission. So in the end, Biden still has to approve of it, right? Anyway, I find the whole thing very strange. The CNN Abrams tanks, I mentioned this yesterday, 31 Abrams tanks, which are the American tanks, arrived in Germany for training with the Ukrainians. They're not necessarily tanks that are going to Ukraine. They're for the training. The American tanks supposedly wouldn't be arriving until the fall. The one thing I also read was these Abrams themselves will not even go to Ukraine eventually. Whatever it is that I don't know why, but for some reason, these tanks are not tanks that we would even give. Nick is saying, didn't the French offer Mirage jets last week? Something came out about the Mirage. There was a quote. There was a quote from Macron that was something to the effect of, I don't want to say why not, but it was something about jets. And maybe it was something like, why not provide jets or something like that. And I thought when he said that, people were saying, well, the jets that the French have are Mirage. Now, they did mention training. We know that the other thing I'm thinking, I'm not sure if this was a related thing or not, but when Zelensky went to France over the weekend and met with Macron, Macron did mention that they would help do training on jets. And everyone said, well, the French have Mirage. So if the French are doing training, they're doing training on Mirage. So does that mean the French are planning on, actually, this is the story. Does that mean the French are planning on giving Mirage? Right? That was the analysis there. So that's all I remember. But I think that's what got people talking about Mirage was, well, why would France say, hey, why don't we train you on using our jets if you have zero intent to ever give him your jets? If anything, you're thinking, I would love to sell you my jets. No, maybe France is thinking after the war, who knows, right? Because I'm thinking France is probably also thinking, hey, you want the F-16. Actually, think about this too. France is probably thinking, you keep talking about those F-16s. Why don't I give you a little run around the track with my Mirage fighter jets from France? See how you like them, because maybe you'll want to buy them instead of buying those or however you're getting them, the American F-16s. So I think France may be a little jealous here too, which is fine, But yes, France is giving the long-range missiles. I mentioned that earlier, actually. The long-range missiles that France is giving are the exact same missiles, or the French version, at least, of the British long-range missiles, the Storm Shadow. France and Britain created them together. France has their version. Britain has theirs. So anyway, it's very good news. Anthony, will Russia keep bombing after Ukraine gets its land back? Maybe. Maybe. They can certainly, well, yeah, they can. They can. In the end, Russia can keep being a pain in the ass, basically, right? Even if they don't have enough weapons to push the Ukraine. Like, let's say over the next year, Ukraine is able to get all of this land back that it lost, and maybe even this land too. Oh, who's the gifter? Timothy. Thank you, Timothy. That's a very nice one, Timothy. I know that. Thank you for that. The postcard thing. Let's say they even get back Crimea, which is the really big prize the Ukrainians want. But either way, that doesn't necessarily stop Russia. It's not like Russia gives up. And by the way, this is the same thing for Ukraine. Russia could have, people were saying, why didn't Russia just say, well, that's it, we're not going any farther, we're taking this, the war is over. Well, Ukraine would have gone, well, no, the war isn't over. You're occupying this and this. We're just going to keep bombing you, right? So the war doesn't end until you stop sending bombs at each other. From Russia's perspective, if Ukraine ends up getting all that land back, Russia will still bomb them to try to make their life hell, unless there's some kind of a peace treaty. The problem is, I really don't know how you reach a peace treaty, unless it's a situation where Russia, basically, I mean, the country, the Putin gets overthrown, basically. Just like Afghanistan, people rise up and they say there have been too many deaths, too much, too many weapons lost, too much money and everything. This is ridiculous. We're pulling out and this war is over. Afghanistan, it's not like they reached a peace treaty. The Russians just said, okay, frankly, not unlike us leaving Afghanistan and us leaving Iraq. We just said, okay, enough's enough, right? We're getting out of there. Same thing happened there. So you could have that happen. Thank you, TikTok Novice, for the TikTok prize. I appreciate that. You could have that happen, but it's a problem. It's not clear how you stop them from fighting with each other. I don't know. Deutschland, hello, Deutschland. CNN reports that Russia's oil exports have risen to their highest level since the country invaded Ukraine more than a year ago. India is the culprit on this one. Thank you, Ellie. India's been actually refining Russian oil and then selling it back to Europe. India's yet another country. I mean, I really like the only, not solace I take from this, but I get annoyed when people like to blame Western countries for everything, right? And they always, like the Middle East, that everything in the Middle East is because they're brown people and we're white people. I'm like, well, that's not exactly why we didn't bomb them because they're brown people. That's not exactly what was happening. And I think the only solace I can take from what India is doing in this war by basically helping genocide, supporting genocide in Russia, which is what Indians are doing, and what the South Africans are doing, which is supporting genocide by Russia in Ukraine, is that they're showing that bad behavior by countries is unfortunately a human. It is an aspect of being human. It is not an aspect of being any particular race. Everybody has the potential to be really shitty, and it really sucks. And our governments have done it. All of our governments on this show have done it, and pretty much every people in the world, mostly. I'm not going to speak for the native communities in Canada and Alaska. I can't speak for them. But generally speaking, most communities in the world have acted really shitty to their neighbors, and we're seeing it yet again with even places like India. But I will say this. I think there's a sort of a special place in hell for India and South Africa in this, because they are former colonial, former colonies. They're former colonies in essence, or they were colonized or treated in a colonial manner. Because you could say South Africa was independent, but the majority of the South African people, the blacks, or the colored people, I should say, depending how you want to call it, I guess. The people of color were subjugated, right? I mean, they were treated like they were a colony or something, and to only 30 years later turn around and go, okay, big deal. I guess we'll help the colonial people commit genocide. Okay. I just think it's shitty. But anyway, well, except they're being pro-genocide and they're being pro-imperial. It doesn't matter if you're anti-Europe. I got news for you. If you're India or Africa, you don't get to say, I don't like white people, or I don't like Europe, or I don't like America, so I'm going to support genocidal imperial empires. No. Genocide, bad. You don't get to support it because you don't like the color of the skin, or you don't like the country involved, or anything else. And we don't get to either. We don't get to say it's okay that somebody is a victim of genocide, men, women, and children, because we don't like their government. No, doesn't work that way. In any case, all right, final thing. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, claims that an American has died in Ukraine. He says he has the body, is treating it with respect because it was a fighter. He actually gave a good statement about it. I mean, basically saying this guy was a fighter. He died fighting. We would never dishonor that, blah, blah, blah. And supposedly is going to turn the body over to the U.S. government with an American flag or something covered. I don't know what. Thank you, Cajun, for the heart there. So who knows? Throwing it out there. Final thing is, we do have a store.aravosis.com. You can find it in the link in my bio on TikTok. Click it. Take you to all my links. You guys can find it at aravosis.com, the bottom of the screen. Lots of cool Ukrainian stuff, or Ukrainian themed stuff, I should say. And just like the other stuff, anything that's Ukrainian themed, 50% of the proceeds I use for support my work, because I do this full time. And the other 50% I am sending back to Ukraine, and we've been using it for the war effort and the humanitarian effort there. So please go check that out, store.aravosis.com. Let's do questions. TikTok. Why don't I start on TikTok? You guys can submit questions on TikTok via the Q&A link in my profile. Actually, I'll even show you. Here's TikTok. You zoom in and you see where it says Q&A right there. Hey, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, she's there. Okay, I hear you. All right. I didn't realize my dog is under my dog is under the table I've got the dog bed under the table where I work at my mom's when I'm visiting, and my dog is in the bed under the table, and mom's dog likes to come, and she's really sweet, but she likes to come and like basically climb into the bed next to my dog, and my dog hates it. So all of a sudden, as I'm talking to you, oh geez, now mom's dog's pissed. I heard like because she was getting ready to climb into bed with my dog. Kukla. Okay, come here. Sasha, quiet. Hey, no, come here, quiet. Hey. All right, there. Jeez, oh my God. All right, jeez. We had a little war there. All right. Now I got mom's dog on the chair. Everything's happy. Okay. All right. Questions on TikTok. Questions. Hold on a second here. TikTok. Okay, questions. Not sure what you mean. Was a Patriot missile system damaged in Kyiv last night? The latest news from the New York Times is U.S. officials are saying it was damaged, but hang on there. Thank you, La Chapara, for the heart there. It was damaged, not quite clear how. It might have been damaged by the rocket hitting nearby. It also might have been damaged by the rockets getting blown up in the air, which is what people are thinking more, because it looks like all the rockets got blown up, but they get blown up in the air, and guess what? There's still pieces of the rocket, the debris that comes down. It looks like it did cause some damage, but what's happening is the two U.S. government officials told the New York Times that it was damaged, but it still works. So basically, it didn't put it out of commission, which is good. What I was telling folks is pretty much when my show is over, we can check the news, or you can check now and see what's going on, because now is about an hour ago, or now maybe 2 hours ago, the Russians already started blowing up Ukraine again. So we will know right away how it's been going as far as how the missile defense has been going for Kyiv, the capital. So, see you, Richard. Thanks for joining us over there on Twitch. I appreciate that. Tired Guy says, what are your thoughts on the rumors of Lukashenko's health? And if it's serious, how may it potentially affect Belarus in the future? Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily the expert on Belarus, but as far as the future of Belarus, but Ukraine, okay, Russia, right? There's a line going up. Oh, here it is. The line's going up here. Russia's pretty much from the A in Ukraine is Russia, and then Russia's really huge. It's 11 time zones, so Russia goes very far away. But here is Belarus, okay? So this is Belarus, and then going further up, this is Russia. Belarus is a dictatorship, former Soviet dictatorship, very good best buddies with Putin. The dictator Lukashenko, who's been there, I don't know, he may have been there 20 years now. He is not in very good health. He was in Moscow for the big celebration they were having about World War II the other day. Looked horrible. His hand was bandaged. He then had to go to the hospital for several days. They put him out there. They put him out there publicly to try to let people, basically know he was alive. And they, thank you, Susan. Appreciate that. They were trying to show people that he was alive. But if you listen, I think BBC or somebody has the video, but if you listen to it, you hear him talk. He's talking like the Godfather when he was almost dead. You hear him talking kind of like this. And you're just kind of going, dude, what the hell happened to you? Not doing well. The issue becomes what happens with the country if he dies. Now, there's again, beyond my pay grade, understanding all of Belarus, but the power does not just reside with him. I was reading some of the sort of Belarusian exiles talk about the other day. There's a much larger group of people who kind of with him run the country, and they have a role to play as well if he's not able to carry out the job or he dies. What some of the exiles are saying, or some of the, I guess exiles, thank you, Zink, for the heart there, folks who are not in Belarus so they can speak out, otherwise they'd be thrown in jail. They were saying that the West should be reaching out to those other power centers now in Belarus, just in case Lukashenko dies, because there's a chance that they might be able to, sort of direct the country, whether it's away from Russia, away from the Russian, sort of the Soviet or the dictatorial model. Who knows? That's what they're saying. So I would say in general, you always want to be careful with saying we'd like a leader to go in a dictatorship, because you don't know who's coming next and it could be worse. But in this case, I don't know how much worse it could be. It could be lung cancer. He doesn't look good. He didn't look good. And the fact that the bandages on the hands made me think he was in the hospital and had the, you know what I mean, the IVs in his hands and all, and he's old, so they get really damaged. And anyway, kind of messed up. Air siren all clear. That's good, Nico. Although last night I think they had 3 of them, 3 different attacks they were doing. So Belgium's late to the chat. Late, but never too late. I don't know. I couldn't figure out what to say. Thank you for that. Russia. Well, that's one question. I mean, Roger is saying Russia would try to annex Belarus if Lukashenko dies. That's a possibility. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Would they be able to pull it off? You know, would the Belarusian armed forces put up with it? Now, the Belarusian armed forces are not that big and not that good. Having said that, Russia doesn't have a hell of a lot to play with, you know, right now either, right? Thank you, Susan. You're being very kind again. I appreciate it. But you know, the good news for Belarus is it's, you know, the old joke, you and what army, right? You know, what army do the Russians plan on using to subdue an entire country? Would the Belarusian people put up with it? Then again, there already is a dictator, right? There's already a dictatorship that's keeping the country in line. I don't know. The Russians might, but if I were Putin, I'd be a little worried about, you've got this one war that you can't pull off yet. And now you're going to take another country and annex it and run another country when this one isn't going well. You don't have enough men and enough weapons. He might, because it would be stupid, but he might. And if that happens, I would say it probably means good news for Ukraine, bad news for Belarusians, of course, but good news for Ukraine, because it means it's just going to be even harder for Putin to do anything if he's got 2 different wars to fight now. President Turkey if he loses the election, will that change Turkey's position on Ukraine and NATO? Probably. If he were to lose the election, we think the opposition leader guy, whose name I cannot pronounce with a K, but that he would he's more anti-Russian than Erdogan, the current leader, and he's more pro-democracy, which is good. NATO overall, I haven't seen much about him in NATO, but I know I've seen more pro-democracy and more anti-Russian, which will help with regards to Ukraine, but will also help with regards to NATO, because maybe not as much as NATO, but the European Union thing is its own problem because of Cyprus. But there's also frictions with the U.S. because of the democracy issue as well, because Erdogan's been watering down the democracy. But there's concern as to, you know, will Erdogan lose? The runoff is going to be in 2 weeks. Will he lose? You know, I was reading Carl Bildt, who's the former, former foreign minister, but I think he might have been also was he a former prime minister too of Sweden? I think he was prime minister too back in the 90s. But Bildt was just in Turkey and said he's afraid Erdogan, because his party, Erdogan's, did very well in the parliamentary elections. He's afraid that Erdogan is going to basically win the election now because of that. That it's because it's going to give him too much. I'm sorry. There was a troll. I like when the trolls write things in bad English. It makes me laugh. Thank you. Sorry. Who was that? Thank you, Sarah. Who's that? Sarah or Ashley? Oh, Ashley, you're the one who blocked, or Sarah. I don't know which. Maybe, you both blocked. It looks like. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Flower Lady, for that. And Zing for the lightning bolt. I'm sure I didn't miss anything. No, some troll had said something, but the way they said it though. What makes you the right to say such? I forgot the word. It was some weird. It was kind of accurate, but funny the way they said it in English. It just sounded funny. It made me laugh. All right. Roger says Belarus's annexation might be part of the deal. Belarus isn't forced to send its troops into Ukraine in exchange for Russia annexing Belarus when Lukashenko dies. I mean, maybe I wouldn't put it past Putin. Part of Putin's goal here, a big part of Putin's goal is to expand Russia, make Russia great again by bringing back some of the former territories. So he's going to want to take Belarus, you know? So more questions, but yes, my nephew's visiting. So we are going to finish soon and I'm going to mingle with my nephew and his fiance. Do you think if Erdogan loses the Turkish election that the new president would allow Sweden to join NATO? Yes. The question is whether he would do it right away or whether, put it this way, he'd be easier to negotiate with because Erdogan's just playing games. Erdogan's just playing games at this point. Like a Bond villain, except it's more like Boris and Natasha kind of villain, not really a Bond villain. The Bond villains at least know what they're doing. I think like the Russian trolls and the Russians, it's kind of, They're more like the Goa'uld in SG9 or SG1. It's a little over the top about it, like at Boris and Natasha, Sorry, who were the glasses from there? Chezak. Thank you, Chezak. Or Charles, Alaska, maybe. Oh, you are Charles, Alaska. I remember you. I never put 2 and 2 together that you're Charles from Alaska. That's very funny. Okay. I don't think I put 2 and 2 together. I've got it now. That's right. We chatted. I don't know where we chatted, but we chatted before. I remember that now. That's very funny. That's what I mean. They're like Rocky and Bullwinkle villains rather than, would Putin ever use nukes? No. They were threatening Britain again yesterday, and it was just ridiculous. Russian TV, Kiselyov, who I love, Dmitry Kiselyov, he was, at least, I don't know if he still is, but sort of the big propaganda chief in Russia. And I'm trying to figure out how I say this. If I were to run into him in a gay bar, I would not be surprised. Let's put it that way. He's an interesting choice for a top Putin propaganda official. I'll put it that way. Thank you, Stevens, for the heart there. And Kiselyov was going off. And I mean, again, you British people, oh my God, you have gotten inside they talk about living rent free. You have gotten inside the Russian head. You're driving them nuts. He's going off last night about Great Britain, you are a little island. You are a little vulnerable island. And if we want to attack you, we can. One of our nuclear missiles would take you out. And he's talking like this. And you're watching this. What would, I think it even said, what would stop us? Thank you, Marino Burgos. Okay, I'll say that. Thank you for the hat. And he's saying, what would stop us from doing this? And I'm like, and I was funny, kind of pissed. I was on Twitter and I was like, Britain's nuclear weapons might stop you from doing it. Britain's nuclear submarines that would survive any nuclear attack that you would launch, those might stop you from doing it because they'd be hitting your cities in response. Britain's BFF America that has a hell of a lot more nuclear weapons and also nuclear submarines, they would be a reason. France's nuclear weapons would be a reason because France is a member of NATO as well, just like Britain, and you'd be receiving France's nuclear weapons in response. But other than that, you're right. The little island of Great Britain would be very vulnerable if you decided to use your nukes. He's never using his nukes, folks. But what's weird is, I guess there are people, hey, there's cults. We all know this, right? In politics, especially politics of late, there's a lot of cults in politics of late, and people like to hear the cult leader make crazy claims, and they think cult leader claimed it. Yay! I guess in Russia, my guess is these guys know that it works. That by making these kind of ridiculous, we're going to nuke Great Britain, little innocent island, kind of thing, that the Russians go, yay! And they don't realize how poor they are or something. I don't know what it is, but I would hope nobody in Great Britain looks at that and goes, really? I would hope they did look at it and go, really? Rather than looking at it and going, oh my God, I'm so scared they threatened to nuke us. They're not nuking you. Because again, quite literally, they nuke you and it's the end of the world. Russia has a great disincentive for having the world end around them. Right? Did we get a troll on YouTube? I didn't see. Oh, did somebody already get him though? Oh, Connie's a troll. Lies and damn lies. Lies and damn lies. So they're not just lies, Connie. They're lies and damn lies? Oh, wow. But first of all, Connie, you're a little late. We were discussing the hypersonic missiles an hour ago, but since Connie wants to talk about it, then where are all the targets that the hypersonic missiles hit? You hit a zoo last night, Connie. I'm not too impressed with you hitting a zoo. I got to tell you, anybody can hit an animal in a zoo. It doesn't take a superpower to do that. Sorry, I got rid of Connie. Connie's gone now. Connie has left the building. We don't usually get trolls too often on YouTube, but oh well. Bye, Connie. Anyway, thank you for the little crown thing there. Who was the crown thing from, real quick? And then Kanowski with the duck. Oh, that was the king. Thank you, the king, for the crown. The king for the crown. Cute. I'm just looking here. Okay. Anyway, Connie's gone. Was there a different one or was it Connie? Anyways, whatever. They're gone. Let me pull up one or two more questions. Thank you again for that, Susan. That was very nice of you. One or two more questions, and then we're going to call it quits because I know by the time I get into the other room, my nephew's going to be gone, but I would like to see him a little bit. They're going to be here for a couple days, hopefully so. Lies are loosing, dude. Exactly. Beep, 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 beep. There are rumors that Ukraine is going after Crimea, says Inverted Phoenix. Yeah, there are. No, I mean, I say that sincerely. Yeah. Thank you, Kanowski, for the drums there. They may. They very well. I mean, excuse me, they will. I don't think there's a question to that. Thank you, Soren, for the gift there, for the super stickers. Ukraine's going after Crimea. Absolutely, positively going after Crimea. There's no question of it. The question is when they do it. Yep. And actually, Roshan, I've been deleting people, but I'm assuming you've got privileges. So obviously those people feel free to block right away. I mean, I'm sure you have been. Sorry. I happened to catch my eye, so I blocked it, but you're there. Shoot. I saw another troll pop up and I forgot the question I was answering or something. What was I saying? What was I talking about, guys? Oh, Crimea. Yes. Oh, the Ukrainians are definitely going after Crimea. The question is when they go after Crimea. Because, okay, first of all, of course, Ukraine wants to get all of its land back. That's not a surprise. Thank you, Stephen, for the hat. The Russians control this and this. Crimea, they stole in 2014. This is all the territory they stole in the last year. The Ukrainians want it all back. Crimea is, I would say, the crown jewel they want to get back, but they want all of it back, of course. In order to get back Crimea, the thinking is you don't attack Crimea first. You might attack Crimea. Let me rephrase this, okay? Thank you, Susan. I thought you were going to say that one was for Sasha or me, or anyway, doesn't matter. Thank you for that. Have a good night. Real quick, I missed a guest. Oh, Kanowski with the bear. Thank you. In order to take Crimea, you can attack Crimea, but you're not going to launch an all-out attack in Crimea. What I mean is you might want to send missiles. You might want to blow up some of the military bases. You might want to hit some of the military command centers. You might want to hit some of the artillery storage, right? Some of the transportation links, the railroads. I forget right up here, there's a town they hit recently that has like the two main highways and maybe the main railroads go through. Maybe you want to blow some of those up to make it harder for the Russians. Because remember, this is Russia over here and this is Russia here. So there's two ways for Russia to resupply its troops that are all throughout here. One is by land through here, and the other is by train and road through here. You also have ferry boats, so you can do by sea, but probably not as effective. So by land, by the bridge, and railroad by the bridge. So if you're trying to take Crimea, the thinking is you're going to go after Kherson or Zaporizhia first, that you're going to try to cut here or cut here so that you cut Crimea off from everybody else. Now, what else does that do? If you were to take Kherson, for example, this territory, you not only have cut off Crimea from this, but you cut these guys from this too. So these guys who were getting some of their supplies from Crimea via Russia here, if Ukraine takes back this land, now they can only get it from over here. Makes it a little harder. So in any case, the thinking is Crimea will come, but that the first thing you would do is you'd probably take Zaporizhia, maybe you'd take Kherson, maybe you'd even go further up here, but you want to cut this in half somewhere along here. And then somebody else was just saying here on TikTok, sorry, I didn't see your name, but you'd go after the bridge here, right? The Kerch Bridge. Now, the good thing, because then you're cutting off the supplies from Russia right here, coming in here and going to Crimea, you want to make Crimea as vulnerable as possible, shaping exercises, they're called, as vulnerable as possible before you would invade to take it. So you'd cut off their land connections, their sea, whatever connections you could. Now, interesting in that regard, thank you for the thank you for the judges voting there, Marino. The interesting thing in that regard was, in addition to the long-range cruise missiles from Britain, and now the long-range cruise missiles from France, all of which can hit the bridge, which is great, the Kerch Bridge there. They're getting long-range drones, and I forgot if the long-range drones are coming from the UK. I think they are, but they as well, I think they are coming from the UK. They as well, thank you, Marie, can hit the bridge as well. So now the charges might not be enough. It depends how big the bomb is, right? Thank you, Cheryl, for the seashore there, the coral. It depends how strong the bomb is. And one of the concerns, for example, with HIMARS that we gave them was, even if they had longer missiles for the HIMARS, the missiles might not be strong enough that you might need. I remember people talking at the beginning, you might need like 50 missiles or something in order to take down the bridge, and it would be a waste of missiles. So with these cruise missiles, you've got a much bigger charge, which is great. It was either the UK or France this week. I'd have to look at my notes from yesterday, but one of them Hold on a second. I think I've got my notes here. I think it was Britain. Hold on. I do have yesterday's notes. Hang on. I'll tell you. One moment. Yes. The UK will provide Ukraine with hundreds of attack drones that have a range of over 200 kilometers. 200 kilometers. 200 kilometers. So 120 miles. That 120 miles now might be enough. It's actually, I don't think it's going to be enough to get to the Kerch Bridge unless they get, they already are able to get Zaporizhia or Kherson. In other words, I'd have to look, but I think, actually, I do know from Zaporizhia up here to Kerch is around 200 miles or so. So 120 miles means you're going to have to invade down to here in order to hit the bridge here with those drones, right? So, we'll see about that. All right, let me do a quick recap of the news, guys, and then I'm going to call it quits because my nephew's still here. I'd like to see him from out of town, although I'm pretty sure the second I finish, they're going to walk out the door because that's the way life is. All right, quick summary of the show. Dawn, thank you for that. Dawn just threw a fabulous whale up there. We'll do the wave. And Monica with the superpower hands. Thank you for that. By the way, totally irrespective of nothing, you got me thinking superpower. I'm catching up. I'm finally watching the show Daredevil on Disney Plus. It's excellent. It's a Marvel show. Never knew about it. I'm totally loving it. Just thought I'd mention that. Very interesting show. You made me think of it with the hands, even though the hands have nothing to do with it. So it is day 447 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation. Keep in mind, I forgot to mention that Saturday morning, I am doing a coffee talk. I did mention this actually. Saturday morning, coffee talk with the paid TikTok subscribers and the paid Discord subscribers. Discord, you can go to, actually, all of you can go to aravosis.com and look for my Discord link there. You guys have it at the bottom of the screen, the tiny URL. You guys can also find it via my links on TikTok, my Linktree links. But go to my Discord and click through. And if you become a paying member, one of the things you get is Saturday mornings, we sit around and we just have a coffee talk, all of us together privately. It's fun. I like it. Stop it, Dan. I love that show. Be nice. Be nice. Well, I'm only 2 episodes in. I'm liking it so far. Maybe it gets worse. But it's at Marvel. I think it's at Marvel. Oh, maybe it is DC Comics. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And then 1 o'clock Eastern, that's 11 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Eastern afternoon on Saturday, I will do my weekend review on Twitch. And my Twitch account is the Aravosis account. It's not the account I'm using today with you Twitchers. This is the daily account. Aravosis is my affiliate account because they've got to be different. Twitch has lots of funky reasons. So that is my weekly account I will be doing. To get into the private auction, you have to become a paying member. If you're a paying member, it should have like, once you click the verify, you join my thing, you become a paying member, you click the verify and all that kind of stuff. And then it should open everything up. So if you're a paying member, you should be able to see and bid on the private auction that's called a VIP auction. If you're having a problem, at the very least, you should be able to see the part that says create a ticket in the Discord. If you're actually in my Discord, there's a create a ticket function on the left that will allow you to say, help me out. And I can go there and help you out and we can talk more. So you should hopefully be able to do that, I hope. So let me go really quick. Ukraine knocked down 6 unstoppable hypersonic missiles from Russia last night. They were part of 18 missiles totally that Ukraine knocked all of them down. Big deal. The Russians said they blew up what is it called? Patriot missile battery. U.S. officials are saying they did not. They actually damaged it, but it's still working, which is good. You're having a problem logging into your Discord? Oh, okay. Well, now people do say in general with Discord to use the app is what people always tell me. So always use the app, whether it's your phone, your iPad or whatever, even on a computer, use an app. And the final thing is, I always tell folks, although it tells you in my Discord itself, if you're going to buy a subscription, try to do it on your computer because it's much cheaper. When you buy Discord subscriptions on your phone, at least Apple, they charge you 30% more because of Apple's fees, which is ridiculous, but that's what it is. So always try to use your computer. The French are sending their version of the Storm Shadow cruise missiles to Ukraine now, which is huge. Bakhmut, you know what? Not a lot of change in Bakhmut. The Ukrainians made got more land in the north and south. The Russians have gotten more land in the middle. An advisor to Ukraine's defense ministry says Ukraine wants 40 to 50 F-16s total. The Brits are now working with the Dutch to try to put together a coalition to provide F-16s to Ukraine. I said that's interesting considering the White House still said no yesterday, but something's going on that they're not telling us. And it's good is what I mean. There's something behind the scenes that the White House clearly gave the Brits the nod to go ahead and do this. I don't know why, but it's happening. 31 M1 Abrams tanks have arrived in Germany ahead of a training program to train Ukrainian troops. CNN reports that Russian oil exports have risen to their highest levels since the country invaded Ukraine because of the Indians, no good Indians. And finally, Prigozhin claims that an American has died in Ukraine and the Wagner Group has the body and will return it, which is actually nice of them, surprisingly. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to go and meet my nephew and company and fiance, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, mods. I did see that. A lot of mod action. Roshan, you had to do some work too over on YouTube today, didn't you? I don't think we get the mods. I mean, the mods. We don't usually get the trolls over on YouTube. Not really. I even saw some today. But TikTok, we always get them. So thank you guys. And some last minute gifts from Red Watts. Thank you for the bullseye. I will otherwise see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time US. And see you then. But as I said, feel free to go to my profile, click the main, YouGuysAreAravosis.com, or the link in my profile on TikTok, and you'll see all of my stuff, my Patreon, my Discord, my PayPal, if you want to support my work, if you just want to read more about me. My LinkedIn is there, so you can read who I am, all sorts of stuff. But if you want to help, please do go check out the Discord and maybe sign up. I would appreciate it. And bid in the auction. Everything starting tomorrow morning and then through the night, things start to finish up. So go check. There's some cool stuff, as I said. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Bye.